What's up, everyone? It's a knife seller here, and today I'm going to be doing my first impressions on my newest knife. This is the Spyderco Shaman, and this was a sprint run that just came out through Knife Center with an S90V blade and a Micarta handle. So the Shaman is probably one of Spyderco's most popular knives, usually on like the top 10 lists of Spyderco's. It's usually on most people's, and on my top 10 video, I get a lot of comments like, oh, you need to try the Shaman. So I was looking for a sprint run to pop up that I was interested in, and this one, S90V, I really like it on my native Chief, and my Micarta is a good handle material, and it overall looks good. So I went ahead and got it. But let's go ahead and get into this video. A little bit of like a use update. I've had it for about a week, used it. I haven't sharpened it yet, haven't stropped it yet. It's done everything I've needed it to do. It doesn't feel that sharp right now, but I'll probably put my own edge on it after this video. So yeah, this knife is made in the Golden, Colorado factory. It's probably my second favorite Spyderco factory behind Taichung, Taiwan. I think they are doing a little bit better, but Golden still does a really good job, and I do prefer that it is made in America. This knife runs about $250, I think. I got it for, I think, like $260 after shipping, or I don't even know. It was around that area. I think the regular Shaman is probably pretty close to that, maybe like $230, $240 or something, which I think is kind of pricey. But anyway, let's just get into the video. So the looks, I think this knife looks better than most Spyderco's because it doesn't have this big thumb ramp that they have for the hole opening right here. It is just flat up top. It's almost like a larger version of the native if you compare them right here, but it does have a compression lock. But I think that aesthetic of the flat top here looks a lot better and makes it look more like a normal knife. It still has the big hole in the blade, but I do like how this knife looks. The blade grind looks pretty aggressive. I don't know, it's just like right here where there's this flat up here, like the transition, I hope you can see in that light, isn't very clean. Like it looks like there's some belt chatter or something on there. Doesn't bother me that much, but maybe it's just because S90V, I don't know, is a harder stainless steel. I'm not sure, but the grind doesn't look that clean. And I think the S30V one's stonewashed, so I probably would have rather seen that, but maybe it would have looked bad with S90V. I don't know. Now onto the blade. So S90V, my thoughts on the steel, probably my favorite stainless steel. I do have Magna Cut, so that'd probably be the main other competitor, and maybe S45VN as well. But Magna Cut, it's probably a little less consistent from the things I've seen than S90V is, especially from Spyderco. Magna Cut at 64 is a lot different than Magna Cut at 62 from what I've seen. And S90V, if it's done good, it usually performs good. With that said, a poorly heat-treated knife is still a poorly heat-treated knife. Depends on company to company. Spyderco usually does their heat treats on the higher end for production knives, and that's kind of a reason why I buy a lot of them, because when I'm trying out the steel, I'm trying out a good version of it, not just like Magna Cut from some random maker that is just doing the easiest heat treat possible, where it doesn't have like crazy issues, just isn't maximized. The blade grind on this, it is a little bit thicker. It's got a thick stock. I'll compare it to, let's do it to the PM2 again, I guess. PM2 has a very aggressive distal taper, so they're probably the same thickness at the thickest point, like in the back, but the Shaman carries this thickness like all the way till probably here, and then it kind of tapers down. And also it is thicker behind the edge. I've never measured it, so hopefully this works. And I think the batteries, yeah, they're very low in my caliper, so the numbers are hard to see, but I'll just read them out. So looking at it, I got like 26, I'm pretty high up. 23 thousandths behind the edge. And then up here, 25. thousandths behind the edge. So the average Spyderco is usually that 20, 21 thousandths, at least from Golden. And so this is a little bit thicker behind the edge. I haven't noticed any issues like in use, but I would probably like to see it thinner. I think Spyderco's goal with this knife is to try and make it more hard use, but for me and a lot of people, I think a lot of people are just carrying this knife like they would a PM2, so I would rather see a thinner blade. And when I'm hard using a knife, I'm using it for like hard use cutting tasks where a thinner edge is better for me than a thicker one. I'm not doing things that could make the knife break. And so that's just, I've talked about it a lot, just the thing with hard use knives. A lot of companies try and make them unbreakable, but I would really prefer a thinner edge, a well-performing edge that is strong enough to handle basic things, which is where you can see pros with a good heat treat, things like that. But anyway, that's, I think, pretty much all I got for the blade. The blade shape, pretty simple, kind of this leaf shape, looks good. I like it. For the fit and finish and lockup, when I got it, the pivot needed to be Loctited, which I already did. And that doesn't really happen with Spydercos very much, so maybe that's a good sign, because I know a lot of people hate it, because sometimes they'll ship out with like red Loctite on them and you just can't move them and you strip the screws. I know in my first PM2, I've stripped the screws pretty bad. I don't know. I just messed it up pulling out of my case, but like right there, the older Golden ones are very Loctited in. So this pivot wasn't, but I had to Loctite it myself because within a couple flips, it loosened up. There was also, I could hear like a metal on metal sound when opening it. After I tightened it down, it's not like that anymore. But so right now it's like a little bit off to the right with centering, but pretty good, you know, I'm not complaining. And then a tiny bit of side to side, but not to the point that I would need to tighten it. You know, it doesn't bother me enough for that. And the action is pretty good for a compression lock. But yeah, fit and finish could have been better, I guess, on at least the centering and stuff. Like, I'd never like to hear a metal on metal sound because it makes me kind of question if maybe there's a burr in the area of the liners or the pivot. I don't know, that still needs to be knocked down, because I think some people have had to do that with Shamans. But for the finishing of it, these Micarta scales are really nicely done. I like this contouring, something that Spyderco, at least the Golden Colorado factory, doesn't do enough of. Like with the PM2, there's like, they knock down this edge on the corner, but that is about it. It's also smooth inside the scale, so you don't have issues like sometimes on the FRN ones with it being a little sharp. And it's pretty good back here. You know, this doesn't feel sharp at all, this little thin piece of micarta. And finishing is overall good. Just also on the blade, as I already mentioned, that finishing on the grind isn't my favorite. But yeah, that's about all I got for the fit and finish. For the ergonomics, honestly, holding it like this, it feels fine, but I think there's going to be problems with this compression lock, especially because they decided to put jimping on it. I don't know if that was to kind of make it more of a hard use or show that they're doing that, but I don't think that that serves very much of a purpose. But when your hand is in this choked up position right here, that compression lock is going to be right in your palm, and that is probably not going to be very comfortable. I haven't done crazy cutting with this knife yet. I've just basically cut cardboard and tape, and usually I can cut all of that like this or like this, and so I haven't had to do this like hammer grip bearing down on it as hard as I can. So we'll see when it comes to the actual review. But also with the compression lock, it has the nub sticking out, which is a problem that a lot of people mentioned. This nub from the blade sticks out a little bit in the close position on the compression lock, so it hits your finger when you close it. Now, that's not a problem for me, like action-wise, which is why a lot of people bring it up, because it isn't as fun to play with. I don't really care about that. It just kind of makes me question if this knife should be a compression lock, because I feel like they're trying to make a full-size native, and the native's a back lock, and I just feel like the native is a lot more comfortable than this one. And if this was a back lock, it wouldn't be as fun to play with. So it wouldn't be as fun to play with. But you wouldn't have the issue with the compression lock being a hot spot, and you wouldn't have the issue with there being a nub sticking out. But compression lock, I assume, sells more just because it's more fun to play with. So what are you going to do? But I think it would be cool to see maybe like a back lock or a frame lock or a liner lock or whatever, or also the ball bearing lock like on the Mannix. I think that would fit this knife perfectly. So I just feel like the compression lock on this was used because it's fun to play with. So I wish Spyderco was looking more into the ultra utilitarian kind of route like they did with the Gale Bradley 2 or something like that. But you know, they gotta appeal to the general population more than people like me who just want the knife to fit one purpose and then like be maximized in that purpose. I don't even know what I'm saying. But anything else with the ergonomics, it feels comfortable, like I said, in hand. There's just the issue with the compression lock. This jimping is pretty sharp. I prefer not to see that, but it honestly doesn't bother me that bad. So yeah. But also it's weird because this micarta is very slick and the jimping is really sharp. I'd rather have seen like not an oiled micarta to where you have a little bit more grip on it, like this PM2. I don't know if you can hear that versus this one's just smooth. But I really haven't had this thing fall out of my hands when using the compression lock. So probably not that bad. This thing carries fine for me. Haven't had any problems with it. It does have a little bit sticking out. So I think some people use deep carry clips for this. I'm not a deep carry clip fan myself. You do have a lanyard hole here, which is cool. But overall, doesn't feel too heavy. Feels heavier than most Spydercos, probably because it has metal liners. They are milled out though, but really it's probably equal to the weight of the military. The military is a lot bigger, but the carry, no problems with it. You can carry like a titanium frame lock. This knife works just fine. Probably not going to carry this thing in like lightweight shorts, but you know, for most of the time what I'm wearing to work, this thing works fine. For the action on this, action is good. It flicks out good and closes good. There is the issue with the nub, if that's a deal breaker for you. That is kind of weird, but yeah. Action is overall good. I think you can front flip this thing, which I am a horrible front flipper, so yeah, I did it. I broke the T10. Okay, come on. Oh yeah, I did it. That kind of just hurt my thumb. But it can front flip technically. So for the fidgeters, maybe you guys will like this knife. Compression lock, it's a good locking mechanism. Other than the facts with ergonomics and the nub, I do like the ease of opening one-handed and closing one-handed, because with the back lock, it is kind of an extra step in there. But it's one that's worth it to me. So a lot of times it's not for some people, but I do still like the compression lock as a locking mechanism. For the value, I don't really want to say much on this on the first impressions, other than buying the regular S90V version and Black G10 was not worth it to me. But a sprint run where I get to try a new steel, I haven't been like, oh man, I just wasted my money. I feel like value, it's something that is whatever you think it is. There aren't knives that are blatantly overpriced, or they would no longer be sold because they wouldn't have sold any of them. And Spyderco, we've seen them upping their prices over the years. Some of that, I assume, is due to inflation, but maybe some of it is just they're upping their prices. I don't know. And they still continue to sell out pretty good. And yeah, one thing I'd like to note is this sprint run, I got this like probably 30 minutes after it released. I wasn't even that eager. I saw like Knife Center posted it was live or something. I was like, oh, if it's still in stock, I'll buy it. And it was like 30 minutes later and it still was. So I think the sprint run market is kind of dying out. I've kind of talked about this a while, but probably a year or two ago, it was like every sprint run is sold out in 5 minutes. And now they seem to be a little more chill, especially with an S90V Micarta Shaman. The Shaman is usually the knife that sells out the fastest. I know the the Crewwear Micarta Shaman is like one of the most expensive sprint runs. I know the Knife Joker Shaman is as well. I think that's carbon fiber S90V. I'm not really sure, but I thought this one would sell out really fast and it didn't. So that's some hope for the community. I know a lot of people get really upset about the sprint runs. My thought is it's capitalism, you know, deal with it. If you didn't get it, if it's worth it enough to pay the extra price on the secondary, just do that. And if it's not, just save your money, I guess. There's really nothing you can do about it. But yeah, that's all I got for today. I'm excited to get some more use on this knife. Yeah, I haven't been posting as much. I say this every time I do a video. Partially, I haven't been posting this week because I've been sick and I get to record a video and I sound horrible and I like stop all the time. So I'm feeling better now. And this is the first knife I've bought in a couple months. So hopefully more videos coming out soon. But yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. I'll see you later.